Here is your prescription and a little something if you overdose. A new twist in the debate over painkillers and addiction. Colorado gets credit for being out front in preventing the next school shooting. Santa does not work for the federal government. Good thing considering the shutdown talk and what they do each Christmas in Colorado Springs. Our Marshall Zellinger, he's obsessed with a bird, one unique bird in Denver. And farewell to a man who changed the way this city eats. That's next. We tend to talk about opioid addiction as if it's something that happens to other people, you know, the kind of people that these things happen to in life. Yet the people who are in the business of preventing addiction know that it can start small, routine, with the types of everyday prescriptions Coloradans get, well, every day. Which is why the FDA is considering recommending that painkillers automatically come with an overdose rescue drug. Our Anusha Roy takes a closer look.
This holiday, Judy Solano will not be with her son.
Every day was a struggle, watching him decline, just withdraw from the world.
But she says it's okay because he's getting help.
He was getting pills from his friends who were taking them from their parents. By the time he was 18, he started to experiment and self-medicate with heroin. He doesn't remember what happened. Apparently the people he was with had the insight to administer naloxone.
Naloxone can reverse an overdose. It's used by Denver health paramedics as many as 3 times a day. More than 170 law enforcement agencies carry it. And in a 12-11 vote, an FDA advisory panel says opioid painkiller labels should change so more people are prescribed what's considered the antidote to overdosing.
You know, what they recommended is co-prescribing naloxone for people who receive opioids. There's 190 million opioid prescriptions a year.
Dr. Rob Valek, a drug addiction expert, appreciates the sentiment.
Probably a little bit over-aggressive to say that everybody should have it.
Instead, he supports what Colorado already recommends, that high-risk patients should have naloxone, especially since they can overdose without being addicted, depending on their dosage, other meds, and if they have breathing problems like asthma and emphysema.
It might only take a few doses for your respiration to slow enough that you can overdose and potentially die.
The FDA commissioner still has to agree to this, but today the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services also came out with a similar recommendation.
So, of course, then there is the cost of actually getting naloxone, and you can go to a lot of pharmacies, get it without a doctor's prescription, and we checked on that, and with pretty standard insurance today, we found that you get it for $25, but if you weren't covered, that's going to cost $200 out of pocket. So that is one more thing that's going to be considered if this ever does become a regulation.
And the people who decide to get it also need to know how to use it.
Yeah, and you can actually get a pharmacist to walk you through it, and it tells you the signs of an overdose, what to do, when to call 911. That is one of the recommendations if you know someone who may be struggling with addiction, to have this nearby as well.
All right, Anusha, thank you very much. Colorado is a national leader in preventing future school shootings. That is laid out pretty clearly in a sweeping new report out this week from the Trump administration. The nationwide school safety report recommends that other states emulate Colorado's Safe to Tell program, our anonymous threat hotline, which was created after the Columbine shooting. That same report also highlights that newsrooms across America, including 9 News, have adopted the principle of no notoriety. It's just the idea of limiting attention given to mass shooters, hoping to head off the contagion effect that fame might lead to more shootings. Now, the report also calls for local law enforcement to adopt that same standard of no notoriety. That has drawbacks. In my view, there's wisdom in police, say, limiting the number of times that they'll use a shooter's name or show a shooter's photo. But we've seen some law enforcement agencies go a step farther and refuse to identify suspects publicly, saying that they're participating in no notoriety. That's not actually the point of the campaign, and I hope that that's not what they take away from this week's report. The state legislator who follows in Senator Randy Baumgartner's footsteps would be wise to keep their hands to themselves. That is what largely did in Baumgartner's time in the legislature. Accused of sexual harassment, the Republican retired earlier this week rather than risk getting thrown out of office by the Democrats who just won the majority there. Republican committee is now taking nominations to replace him. Baumgartner's replacement will be the 4th unelected senator to join the upcoming session. 3 other senators also recently submitted their resignation for a variety of reasons. May I make a recommendation? Point you toward work that was done by the competition, but I still hope that you'll read it. Colorado Sun is looking at ranked choice voting in an effort to bring that method to more cities in our state. The Sun examines ranked choice's mixed record in some smaller towns that have tried it. It without question would give independent candidates a better shot at elected office. With ranked choice voting, you pick the candidates you prefer from your first choice down to your least favorite. Maine just did this statewide. And the way that it works is that if no candidate receives more than 50% of the vote, they eliminate the last place finisher and then count them up again until a candidate has a true majority. So while you might not get your first choice, maybe you get your second or your third. You can find a link to the Sun's article on the next Facebook page.
We don't have evidence that it's widely used here.
At this time, we do not know, are not aware of any conversion therapy practices going on in Denver.
As we pointed out here on Next earlier this week, Denver is moving to ban conversion therapy for kids, even though it's not something that is happening in the city. Today, city council members talked about the symbolic importance of the ban as they advanced that idea for a vote of the full council. Today, Senate Republicans in Washington proposed a short-term spending bill to push off a government shutdown. You know who wasn't sweating it, though? Santa and his friends in Colorado Springs. Our NBC affiliate in the Springs had the headline that caught our eye. NORAD Santa tracker not affected by possible government shutdown. You know that's the thing that's covered each year, coast to coast on Christmas. Spokesperson at Pearson Air Force Base, which operates the NORAD tracker, told us that if there were to be a shutdown, of course, that doesn't affect military operations. He says the Department of Defense's budget was approved for this year, and the people running the Santa tracker are volunteers. So regardless of what happens in Washington, Santa is safe. The most Colorado thing we saw today has kind of an Old West feel to it. Ellen Frazier spotted the remodeled Jefferson County Sheriff's Office substation up in Evergreen. The goal is that Western flair. Deputies with the office said that they wanted to blend in up there in Evergreen. In addition to that Old West style, they actually incorporated that large log which was found in the burn area of the 2012 Lower North Fork fire.
But the log was placed there, so I shellacked it and we put it, and we're going to add some other stuff to it just to show, kind of support the people who were affected by the fires we've had up there.
This is not new. The lobbies look like that for about 5 years, but the deputies say they plan to keep it that way because they still, just like us today, got comments about it. He knew the secret to making people happy, whether a celebrity or a nobody, was a good meal.
A story of generosity and fairness and getting free stuff, a thing my dad was particularly skilled at.
Remembering the life of an iconic chef. Interspecies squad goals. Last night, the perplexing case of a goat living in a herd of elk. Tonight, a new puzzle. And while we are talking about the wild lives of wildlife, ever notice that Denver has one different goose? Can you see it?
I really didn't feel safe anymore at home.
Sometimes I wouldn't eat. It was like this hunger pain in your stomach.
It was just so lonely. I just felt like I was not important to anyone.
I never thought homelessness could happen to someone like me.
I remember coming here and I felt comfort, I felt safe.
Graduating to valedictorian, getting a job, keeping the job, it's just a good feeling.
Because I've completely turned my life around and made it into what I've always wanted it to be. There's people out there who can help. There's people out there who care. And things can get better.
If you call 1-800-RUNAWAY, you will get connected to the help you need.
Like lightning on the Great Plains, a spark ignites the imagination of a young 4-H member named Ryan. As a teenager, Ryan explores the wonders of nature. As a young man, he experiments, discovering new possibilities. As a scientist, Ryan uses a new technology to detect an invisible tumor in a little girl's eye. The 4-H commitment of fostering 1 million new scientists and engineers is being embraced by companies and universities around the country. With their help, 4-H is growing the next generation of great thinkers like Ryan. 4-H, 1 million new scientists, 1 million new ideas.
It's completely fine to hear something you don't agree with and say, yeah, I still think the exact same thing. Test your own beliefs. We also want Next to be a reflection of you watching at home. A quiet moment of zen. In Westminster, Santa wears blue. Police department wrapped and delivered more than 1,500 gifts to kids in need this week. Citizens donate the gifts and the officers, they take it from there. They are, as we love to say here, the good ones. And they're almost all good ones. Public servants doing the right thing every day, whether we are watching or not. Know of one or a few that we should highlight? Email next at 9news.com.
The wind today, not fun to have a day like the wind that we saw this afternoon, but I have some good news this hour. The winds are starting to let up a bit. The storm system responsible for the wind and areas of blowing snow and the cooler weather today is tracking off to the east. We're down to 36 at the airport, but the winds are lighter out of the north. Wind chill about 26 and humidity up a bit. We've had some higher gusts over some of the higher passes in excess of 50 and 60 miles per hour. Red Mountain Pass takes the topper with a wind gust to almost 80 today. Still travel very difficult on I-70, but improving. High pressure coming in from the west. Today's storm departing to the east. As that gradient eases, we have a sunny day tomorrow with less wind, and we're watching another storm system. Another chance for snow in the high country just before the upcoming Christmas holiday. But tonight, we'll call it clear and colder. With the wind decreasing tonight, temperatures will be chilly at 24. That's where we start Thursday morning. Temperatures trending up again, back into the upper 40s and lower 50s. Less wind, and then as we move into the first full day of winter, yes, the winter solstice on Friday, highs above average in the 60s, 20% chance of snow on Saturday. And Kyle, we actually have a chance for snow on Christmas. Santa looks pretty excited about that.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. So, you know, there's that bite in the air today. Kind of made the idea of flying south for the winter seem pretty good. Take a look at any of our parks and you'll see geese getting their travel on right now. Take a closer look at City Park and you will find something that has fascinated our Marshall Zellinger for more than a year now.
You know what I love about City Park? More than running here, more than the dog and people watching, even more than the spectacular view from the Museum of Nature and Science. It's when I gander at this odd duck. I mean goose. Heck, I've even made trips to the park just to take pictures with it.
This is actually a gray lag. It's a goose that is actually a transplant from Europe.
That explains their quack scent, which might be funnier if geese quacked instead of honked. But what has me more excited than coming up with puns today is that I found out there are 2 of these distinct geese.
You can see them on farms even today. When they get tired of them, they'll bring them to the park. People do this a lot. They'll bring animals to the park because it's open space and they release them.
Mother and father goose are among the 500 or so geese in this park year-round. And right now, it's clear the extended geese families are making a holiday visit.
We have all the migratory geese in the park right now. We could probably have up to probably 3,000 or 4,000 geese in a day.
Scott Gilmore with Denver Parks and Rec actually didn't mind answering my odd goose questions.
Should have brought my binoculars.
He enjoys bird watching.
There's a diving duck right there. In this area, I could probably see 15 different bird species. You have dabblers, which are like a mallard. You'll see them tip over and you'll see their butts in the air. Hopefully some parents can even see this and say, you know what? Maybe instead of my kids sitting in front of a video game all night, maybe we'll get some binoculars, we'll go out to the park, buy an easy bird book, and go out and ID some birds.
Like my new friends, the gray-lag geese. In City Park for Next, I'm Marshall Zellinger.
Good luck with that pitch. Hey kids, want to go to the park and watch some duck butt? Actually though, to make this a little bit easier, Denver Parks and Rec is considering putting up spotting scopes in the park so that people can go out and get a closer look at the birds. Hey, while we're on the topic of wildlife, wildlife officers are still trying to solve yesterday's mystery of the goat in Loveland that's joined a herd of elk. Well, when they're done with that, next viewer Carla Brown will have them look into this mystery. She took a picture of this goat up in Gillette, Wyoming, that she says has been roaming with a herd of antelope for the past year. Okay, and again, we cannot get over this goat in the herd of elk up in Loveland. Wildlife workers say this is super unusual. It is not how elk typically behave. We have video proof of it now. Clearly, they are all just like one interspecies squad, and they're cool. They all are both herding animals, so perhaps that has something to do with it. A tribute to an icon on the Denver food scene.
Determined and perseverance were core to who he was and traits I tried to emulate.
The famous French chef, known for his food and his personality. And it's a sign that really doesn't have anything to do with its surroundings. That's next.
For Thomas, also known as Detour in the art world, work continues night and day. He's moving on from his usual subjects.
Painted Jay-Z, of course, right here.
To paint people who aren't world famous, but fascinating.
This is me. It's roses mixed with line work and my face.
He's drawing attention to the lives of local women of color.
A lot of times when a lot of people of color go to a museum, it's really hard to find individuals that kind of look like us in these masterpieces. So for me, it's really important to start putting people of color, especially females, in my life on these beautiful portraits. So that way, in 100 years, people will look back and say, okay, they were represented, they were here.
And his muse, Tanya Soleil, is an artist in her own right. And her face is popping up all over town.
So I painted Tanya 3 times.
I think this one might be my favorite. You only see what's on the surface, but you have to dive deep into a person to see who they are. It makes me proud and it makes me grateful that I could be an inspiration to someone.
The colors on these walls radiate confidence.
That girl portrays determination.
And it's reactions like that.
Now they have something beautiful to stare at with a positive message.
That keep Detour working day after day.
To take people from these neighborhoods and to amplify us, it's kind of like we're still leaving our mark.
I want them to feel proud about themselves and how they look and who they are.
I aspire to be a writer. New York Times bestseller is the dream.
My dream is to become a marine biologist and to work hands-on with animals.
I dream to travel around the world and be an influential speaker.
I want to be a businesswoman or a doctor.
My goals and aspirations are to make a difference.
My dream is to be an Air Force pilot.
I want to go to med school and I want to be a trauma surgeon.
I always ask my family for world peace for Christmas.
Teddy, nighty, gong, gong, gong.
Join the party 5 nights a week on Channel 20.
Great meals inevitably lead to great stories, by either sharing old ones or making some new ones. Those stories overflowed from DU's Newman Center today. Remembrances of a man who made many a great meal. Pierre Wolf, a chef who was a fixture in the restaurant scene on TV and on the radio in Denver from the 1950s until he passed away in November.
Pierre Wolf was one of those people who I think most of us just assumed that he would never die because he lived life so large. He lied about his age when he was 16. so that he could fight the Germans. He lost his parents in the Holocaust. Pierre moved to Denver in 1950. Jean and Pierre were married in 1960 at his sister's Hilltop home and remained married 58 years. That same year he was married, Pierre opened the Quorum restaurant in Capitol Hill.
The Brown Palace used to send their dignitaries to Pierre's Quorum. It was about a mile away. So the phone call came to Pierre, the Beatles are coming, Paul McCartney's coming, insisting on no press. Dad put down the phone, speed dialed the Rocky Mountain News. The reporter came in with his camera. Dad gave him a busboy jacket and specific instructions that said, "Don't take the picture until I'm standing behind Paul McCartney." Picture went off. Lady Asher's mom went ballistic. Dad survived the attack. And the next day in the paper was Paul McCartney with my dad smiling right behind him.
During the 1960s decade, Pierre began his media career in both radio and television. Pierre was seen on all local TV channels, ABC, CBS, NBC, and KRMA Channel 6, doing live cooking shows and food travel features.
Last and most importantly is family. He worked hard, relentless, crazy hours for the benefit of the family. He was his happiest to see us our happiest. Before he passed away, I asked my dad, "What do you want me to say at your service?" His answer was simple: "Tell the people of Denver that I love them."
Remembering Pierre Wolf through the lens of our photojournalist Mike Grady. There were more stories about Wolf than we could fit here, so if you want to hear Governor Hickenlooper share how the chef helped the Broncos take down Al Davis's Raiders, you see that story on the next Facebook page. You ever watch news stations other than 9 News? Yeah, me too. And that's why I feel compelled to say something about the competition today. That and your feedback next.
Know the Johnsons 5 nights a week.
How about I give you $100?
No, 200. And you agree not to have any more children.
Okay, that's a decision I have. No.
A traditional family.
I'm here to help.
You're not Mom.
Where's Mom?
And an unconventional comedy.
I think you look good for your age, Dad.
40's not bad, right?
You're only 40? Good Lord, you've lived a hard life.
Weekdays starting at 5 p.m. on Channel 20.
Sideline Stories with Jim Sacamano. Saturday nights at 9:30 on Channel 20.
Often we fall into there's this side and there's this side. Well, you know what? Sometimes this side isn't telling the truth, and we should be saying that. It's important to hear things you don't agree with because it is the single best way to test your own beliefs. It's a sign of thoughtfulness to hear a perspective that you disagree with and to say, you know what? I hadn't considered that. That's a really good point. I want to give you a fresh perspective, something that you haven't thought of. It doesn't matter if you agree. It just matters that we listen to each other.
We are Broncos.
I'm a Broncos fan because we got the best team in the NFL. My whole life I've been a Broncos fan.
Denver till we die. We bring the thunder. Bronco fans are the best.
It's probably the most exciting thing that you could ever feel.
They're the best team in the league, obviously. We got the best fans. The whole stadium shakes and everybody's jumping around and rooting and hollering. There's nothing like this crowd.
Broncos fans will always stay loyal.
We're looking forward to another Super Bowl win. This is Bronco country. We bleed orange and blue.
It's the time of year for reflection, tradition, and giving back.
But for many, it's also a time of stress, anxiety, depression, or addiction.
It's important to know you're not alone.
If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, alcohol, addiction, or eating disorders, call or text the number on your screen anytime to talk to a real person. Visit the community section on 9news.com or the 9 News app for resources.
Let's take care of ourselves and each other.
Hey, Denver, what happens when the most daring team in daytime takes on trending stories live? Anything and everything.
I am pro-sex workers. You're crazy.
I
said it.
You are totally off base here.
can't believe I'm saying this. I do agree with you. Denver, join the live conversation.
With the DBL Nation.
Daily Blast Live, the talk of what's trending. Weekdays at 1 on 9 News.
Across town on another television station, a familiar face said goodbye today, at least for the time being. Mitch Jelniker signed off from Channel 7 after 23 years on the air there. Now, I only know him as you might, as a viewer knows somebody who's there day after day, year after year. But there are folks here who worked with Mitch over there and tell us that, well, he's the real deal. Smart and kind and a man with a heart for his community, and you could see that by watching him. So I know that all of you watching join all of us here and congratulating Mitch Jelniker on an incredible run in Denver TV, and best of luck in whatever comes next. Finally tonight is a sign that swimming is not allowed, and frankly it might not even be possible. A viewer named Charles sent us this sign from Lake Loveland, and well, no swimming. Yeah, I would say so, no swimming. Loveland Parks and Rec says they drained the water to do some repairs there, and they noted that even if the water was high, it's a private lake, so swimming isn't allowed most of the time anyway. We're told the city sometimes rents out the lake during the summer so that the public can use it. I can see why you do a double take, Charles. Have a sign you want to share? Send it to next@9news.com or share it using the hashtag HeyNext. Jesus writes in tonight, it's been a while since I watched Next. I come back and Kyle has a beard. I'm shooketh, he writes. Mark in Fort Collins, as well as Bill, as well as Mary, write in to say that I should not call pronghorn antelope. This is in the story about the goat hanging out with a new herd. That is not the first time that I've made that mistake. I will endeavor not to make the same mistake next time.